November 27th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center in Sekeres and Price, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today, bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sekeres, alongside Blake Price, through the wonders of technology. 4-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, Hidden Switches, conducting things. We got a big show planned for you during what is a exceedingly busy part of the Vancouver Canucks schedule. Back-to-back games, and then matinees on the U.S. Thanksgiving weekend in Buffalo Friday and Detroit on Sunday. First of all, how are you holding...
It's going to be a long time until people remember what it's like to watch a Canucks game when it's dark outside. It'll be 4 straight games.
Yeah, except 4:30. It's kind of dark.
You're complaining about that? Yeah, okay.
No, I was thinking about this yesterday. The first Eastern road trip that they do with all those 4 and 5 o'clock starts, I'm not really ready for hockey at that point because, that's mid-October, and you can have some really nice days, right? You can have some really nice warm days, sun is out and all that. Come this time of year, some of the shortest days of the year, I'm okay with the 4:30 starts. I know there's a lot of people who can make them, and I hear you. One of the travails, right, of living here on the West Coast, Best Coast. But, come late November, when it's, usually rainy, at the very least, that damp, bone-chilling cold, I'm okay with curling up 4:30 to watch a hockey game.
Yeah, I don't mind. It has its conveniences. For us parents that are driving kids around to sports, it can be a little bit annoying, but it has its conveniences. On an open night, you're done by 7 o'clock, and then you can watch a show with the kids maybe, or watch a show with your loved one, or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, have a snack in the first period, third period comes and goes, then you start making dinner, or maybe making the second intermission.
Now, 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, that's something different, though.
That's breakfast.
Breakfast?
That's make breakfast at 9, sit down, eat breakfast with puck drop. Huh?
Brunch with Rinkwide Vancouver.
Right, exactly. Have a mimosa with Jeff and Irf.
Honestly, it'll be the game over at noon. You can still have Eggs Benny, and that's not weird.
Hey, baby, do we remember Game 8? Wasn't that the same thing? Morning hockey in Beantown?
Yeah,
which brings us to our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Are wins in Boston still sweeter than other regular season wins? What says you, Blake Price?
Then all other, no. But it's pretty sweet. So I'm going to say no. But it did feel pretty good, I think, for Canucks fans to see that victory. And it's really only Brad Marchand at this point that you're, venomous against. But seeing Bostonian fans, every crowd shot, you're just you're all annoying. You're all annoying.
There they are again.
Yeah, there they are again. You are so annoying. You with your smug Boston Bruins crap on.
With your chowder. Yeah, obnoxiousness. How many times were we told during that Stanley Cup series, Blake, as we walked around the city of Boston, you poked the bear. Don't poke the bear.
And you know what? They are a franchise that has good history.
Great history. Mm-hmm.
They've got Stanley Cups. I respect that. They're not the Montreal Canadiens. They sort of act like they're the Montreal Canadiens.
No.
Stop it.
The city itself now, with all these titles for the Patriots and Celtics and even Red Sox.
Yeah.
Now they've got that sort of swag. But no, not specifically just the Bruins. Heck, they went 40 years, right? Between Stanley Cups there when they won in 2011. I voted yes. It's just an electric hockey environment. And last night they were all over the home team, right? But they're going to let you know how they feel. It is a emoting crowd. And I do love watching games from that arena, much more than I like being in that arena, because it is single-handedly the worst designed arena I have ever seen in my life. It's like nobody consulted anyone in terms of how an NHL hockey game is put on, presented, and all the different people who have to run the game, work the game, their workflow. Nevertheless, enough media wine. I voted yes. Last chance to take advantage on specials on 2024 models at Surrey Mitsubishi. And when you trade in any vehicle for a new 2024, Surrey Mitsubishi is going to give you $3,000 above market value for your trade. Take advantage, rates as low as 1.9%. The extended warranty on the 2024 PHEV, that's what I'm driving. Blake drives it too when he's not holed up at home taking care of a cold. You get that extended warranty, no extra charge, plus $1,000 towards winter tires only while inventory lasts. Those 2024s going fast at Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or online at surreymitsubishi.ca. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. You might have to start planning your Canucks roadie if you haven't already, because Vancouver on the road is almost guaranteed win night now. 8-1 away from Rogers Arena this season after a 2-0 victory in Boston over the Bruins. 8 straight victories, one off the franchise record. They will go for that tonight against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, it's remarkable. They did it in a very unstylish way last night. It was not pretty to watch. And as long as it's a standalone game, fine with it. I would warn them against trying to win tonight in the same fashion against Sidney Crosby and the Penguins. They need to be a little bit more offensive than they were. How
about a lot more offensive?
Yeah, a lot more. They actually don't need to be that, the 33 shots makes it sound like they weren't that great defensively. They actually
32.
32, right. Correct. Yeah, they were keeping them to the outside for the most part. Like, there weren't a lot of moments where I thought, they're in a lot of trouble here. There was a couple of those scrambly moments, but, credit to players not named Kevin Lankinen in those cases. I thought Canucks skaters, played desperate. They were trying to win that hockey game from the get-go by playing some desperate hockey. So, I think there's a chance they can turn it around here and look a little bit better here tonight, though.
32-15, the shots in the Bruins' favor. The even-strength scoring chances were 27-11 for Boston, and the high dangers were 13-1. Just
that one surprises me. High danger chances surprised me. That didn't feel like 13-1.
One of those games where the best team on that night does not win, and it does not win because of the exploits of the other team's goaltender, and in that case, it was Kevin Lankinen for the Vancouver Canucks, stopping all 32 shots. His second shutout of the season, improves to 10-3-2 on the season, and a really important start because 3-4 of the last 5 starts from Lankinen have been a little bit shaky, middling to poor. This one was October Lankinen when he was really going, and boy, thank you cards to Barry Trotz in Nashville for delivering the Vancouver Canucks Kevin Lankinen and Kiefer Sherwood in free agency. You wonder where they would be, where they would be without these two relatively unheralded free agent signings from the Preds. They have been absolutely awesome for Vancouver. You can make a case that Lankinen is the first quarter MVP here for the Vancouver Canucks. Let's hear from the goaltender, and he tells us that he loves playing in these sorts of games.
That's the part of goaltending that I always love, just scrambling and kind of throwing the technique and the structure out of the window and just trying to get something at it. And like I said before, I got some help from my D core and the guys in front of me, so that made it a lot easier.
He's an interesting conversation. I think he's an interesting fellow. There's a fair bit of depth there, I think, with Kevin Lankinen and the way he thinks and processes and speaks the game.
You mentioned the help, think about that great save that he made where he felt the puck in between his pads and he leaves the crease and sort of spins the puck, spits the puck out, but then it gets thrown right back into the crease, only he's 20 feet away from it right now. So, the players, again, they stacked the blue paint there, made sure that puck stayed out, and there was a couple of other moments like that as well. So he got some help, but there's also some clinical stops and clinical reads that just made it feel like honestly, I had this thought: is this what like absolute kitty bar the door goaltending looks like? I had forgotten what it looks like, because even Demko at his greatest, I don't know. He's not a big shutout goaltender for the most part, Thatcher Demko. He has shutouts. Well,
remember Markstrom, even at the height of his powers here, couldn't buy a shutout.
Right. Just great stats, and you'll get the odd shutout where you keep the Anaheim Ducks to 13 shots. We've seen those. But where you're the only reason that the team won, there hasn't been a ton of those in the last couple of years for anybody. And that was really, really good. I mean, that was as good as we've seen, I think.
Well, let's hear from Rick Tocchet and what he thought of his goaltender last night.
I mean, he was, first, second, and third star. Like, he was very good tonight. Saw the puck extremely well. They made a couple of nice, where they faked they were going to shoot it. They were going to shoot, and they went back, the cross ice, and he just read it. That's when you know that your goal is on tonight. So he made a couple of those saves. They're tough saves he made tonight. Really tough.
Tocchet would later go on to say, explaining some of the poor starts, and he gets a win in Ottawa on Saturday, but the peripherals didn't look good. Several of the other starts around that game, prior to that game, were by no means his best work. But Tocchet admits that he got tired after so many starts. He acknowledged that he's got to find him more rest. He praised Lankinen for still working at his game, even while he was sitting down and she loves playing. And, of course, rest shouldn't be a problem if Thatcher Demko returns. And we anticipate Demko this week. Here's the thing. No morning skate on the second of a back-to-back, so we didn't get a chance to hear from the Vancouver Canucks this morning. We will later, and that's when we'll find out who the starting goaltender is. I can't imagine Tocchet goes back to Lankinen because of what he said about rest and making sure he's got to get him rest. Although, that's the sort of performance where you would wonder, boy, do you just ride this guy while he's that hot? But I think Rick speaking to fatigue and saying he's got to get him more rest probably means that she loves or Demko if he's ready to return here tonight against the Pens.
It is a pretty formidable task, though, as well. To this team is not good, the Penguins, but Sidney Crosby still really good. And that's one thing the Boston Bruins. They've got Pastrnak, I suppose, who made his presence felt on a couple of occasions, but Pastrnak is not Sidney Crosby. And you give Sid too many looks, and he's going to burn you. So, I wonder how much the opposition plays out and who they've got coming up here in this busy stretch of games. And how, they know, we don't, but they know probably when Demko's going to play. They're saying all the right things.
Yeah,
but they know,
so
they know where they get the stopgap. They know that where they get the break for both Lankinen and She Loves. It's coming sometime. Today, or on the weekend, who knows? But they probably have a very good idea when that's going to be. So they'll make that choice accordingly. I'd be very surprised if it's Lankinen, given everything that's happened.
Yeah, no, I agree. Garland with a 2-point night. He's a Boston area kid. He seals it with the empty netter, Jake DeBrusk. And we were both riding that on Bet365 yesterday, Blake. Cha-ching. DeBrusk scores against his old team. You knew that felt good. But in a game like this, when you do so little offensively, I do want to shout, beyond just the goaltender, a couple of the defensive efforts last night with individuals. Ratu, he wins a defensive zone faceoff on the penalty kill late. The Canucks clear the zone in a 1-goal game. Is he becoming their, for lack of a right-handed center, their main draw guy on that side? And is he a fixture now because of what he's doing in the faceoff circle more so than Nils Höglander?
He was out there for a PK shift, wins the faceoff, helps get the puck down the ice, puts a little bit of up-ice pressure, then bolts for he was probably a 20-second shift.
It was 19-second shift, yeah.
Basically out there to win the faceoff, put a little extra sauce on it by chasing it down to the other end, but then quickly peeled away and got a true season penalty killer out there. I mean, blocked a big shot late in the game as well. I mean, I think they hope there's points down the road too, Matt. I don't think we're seeing a guy who's going to be a third line guy who gets 20 points a season. I think they still have higher hopes than that. But we're seeing him round different parts of his game into form here. So I think it's you'd like to see the odd goal and assist from him as well, for sure. But this is almost as good. It really is. It's something.
Well, I think they not only hope for points for him, I would like to think we hope for some penalty kill duty there as well. He seems the right profile. It's 2 points, 1 goal in 13 games for Ratu, but that hardly tells the story. Then I want to shout out Ratu and Heinen as well, because there's a shift late in this hockey game where he wins a race to the puck to wave off icing. He forces the defenseman to reverse onto his backhand, go around the net. He stays with him. He gets a chip on the puck. Ultimately, it leads to a turnover and to a late Brock Boeser chance. He's another guy that we knew, and of course a local kid. He's another guy that we knew points weren't going to tell the whole story. There have been some moments this year where you've wondered, okay, where is he offensively? But it's 10 points in 20 games, so he's tracking as a 40-point guy. And if he can play this like that, those sorts of shifts, being a dog on the bone, turning pucks over deep, wow, that's another great sign for the Canucks. Team defense was their calling card last year. It's their calling card this year. And, yeah, you have to feel good about this one because it was a bit of a smash and grab, right? A bit of a jewel heist.
Well, I also think, though, that they went into that game last night with this mentality that they would play this way. It's the only way that I can explain what we saw there, because there was a couple of opportunities where, and both teams had really active sticks. That's what I noticed. Both teams were getting disrupted as they tried to take shots, pardon me. But I think of a 3-on-2. What period was it? It was in the third. 3-on-2 where all sorts of space for Kiefer Sherwood. He waits a little bit too long. He gets his shot blocked or disrupted maybe as well by a stick. Then it bounces right to Jake DeBrusk. If he gets his shot away quickly, as he normally does, it's a great chance. Waits a beat too long. Again, somebody's stick gets in. That shot gets in. Like, it was a 3-on-2 with 2 good opportunities to get shots away. They never even got the shot away. So I wonder if everybody was just a little bit too patient and a little bit too passive, and then eventually they just started dumping and chasing. Even when they were dumping and chasing on 3-on-2s and peeling off on changes when they had odd man rushes. It's like they thought the only way to win this game tonight is to play super safe, and so they did that. It left a lot on Kevin Lankinen's shoulders, obviously, but it was strange behavior. So that's what I'm gonna watch tonight's game and see if there's any carryover or if that was just in their mind that they were gonna have to play like that to win the game. It was not good times if you were a viewer, but you can get good times in the form of the West Coast IPA from Neighborhood. They've released the Good Times West Coast IPA, bold, crisp, delicious brew, Simcoe, Citra, and Mosaic hops, giving it a big tropical citrus and pine notes. It's fabulous. Go check it out from Neighborhood Brewing.
They win the game with 15 shots. That's 2 off the club record. They won a game in L.A., or beat L.A. 1-0 with 13 shots in 2013. Also did it against Calgary. They scored 4 goals on 13 shots in 2017. We would have covered that game too, Blake.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think today is our 13-year anniversary doing the show, but I know you don't do anniversaries, so don't worry about it. Through 2 periods. Blake's not big on birthdays and anniversaries. Poor Rogerson has found, milestones and stuff that he wants to send us. Like, hey, guys, this is show number this, or episode number that, or post number that. Blake doesn't care. Through
extenuating circumstances. Go ahead, though. Go ahead.
Through 2 periods, the Canucks did not have a single high-danger chance. They did not have a single shot from the middle of the ice. They had 9 shots despite 2 power plays. Blake, they're now averaging just 27 shots per game. It's 28th in the league, and they are surrounded by non-playoff teams, both teams with fewer shots and teams that are slightly above them. Is this sustainable? Can you get to the promised land and win a Stanley Cup when you put so few pucks on the net compared to your compatriots, and particularly when you're hanging with all these terrible teams in terms of your shot output game to game?
But, I mean, it's a little misleading in that the difference one shot makes, averaging one more shot. They jump all the way to 20th. Right? So it's sliced pretty thin in that regard. I would need to see it over a longer stretch. Like, I don't think we've remarked on that much this season, have we? On the Canucks aren't generating enough chances and shots. I don't think we've really had that as a storyline so far this season. Certainly second half of last year we said that. Certainly in the playoffs we said that. But so far I'm not thinking this is a return to the second half just yet. If
you say so. I am going to keep monitoring this, though.
Oh, sure.
Because it is. I was explaining this to a friend last night. I watched the first couple of periods at my local, and just talking about Tocchet, and seemingly when people talk about Tocchet, they want to talk about Brind'Amour as well, right? The two tough-faced Flyers. But you got Brind'Amour on one end of the ledger, shoot from everywhere, and you got Rick on the other end of the ledger. No, hold on to the puck. It's a defensive tactic. We want a quality shot. And really, we're kind of in the midst of the debate here with NHL coaches, team to team, right? Like, it is not sorted. There are two schools of thought on, whether or not you want a ton of shots on goal. And, typically that means you get some bounces, you get some deflections, you get some rebounds, some dirty, greasy goals. We hear that all the time. And what Tocchet is doing, which is a little bit more new school in terms of, every second that the puck is on our stick means it's not going in our net. So let's hold on to the puck. Let's try and create as much possession as possible, not give them the scoring instrument, and wait and see if we can create those high-quality chances. So it's a really interesting dynamic that's playing out in the NHL, game-to-game, team-to-team. And we see one end of the ledger here with Tocchet-style hockey.
Did you say that the 20th place, the Tampa Bay Lightning, had, 28.5? Is that what you said?
One shot more per game.
But that's what it is, 28.5? Because last year...
No, it's 27 to 27.9, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable. That's very notable then, because 20th place in the league last year for the entirety of the season. Mm-hmm. Bigger sample. 30 shots.
That was 20th last year?
Yeah.
So then the moral here, because 30 shots a game right now puts you into the top 12.
Crazy.
So the moral here is it looks like a lot of teams have gone closer to the Canucks in the Tocchet style then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got 18 teams averaging less than 30 shots per game right now in the NHL. And of course, Carolina's number one. They average 33.7. And the worst
are very bad.
Montreal's under 24, Blake.
Yeah. Crazy.
23.6. They're a full shot behind 31st place Detroit. Wow. That's a bad hockey team. This from Canucks News Summaries. Eric Brannstrom breaking out the ice time here. Because Brannstrom actually played a fair bit in the first. But he winds up playing just 13 minutes, 5.5 minutes less than Tyler Myers, who was the second least used defenseman. Yes, there were a lot of specialty teams situations. He doesn't play penalty kill and second unit power play. But it looks like Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote sort of went away from Merrick Brannstrom. And against a Boston team and in a one-shot, greasy, ugly playoff-style game, I wonder if that's a bit of a canary in the mine shaft. And I bring that up because I know there's a school of thought out there with Canucks fans. I've seen it in our comments and mentions here that they still absolutely need that second pair right side defenseman, that is the missing piece. And if they get that, then they're good, because then you can drop Myers down to a third pair, more appropriate role. But I've also seen some people now argue, no, that second pair left side guy, I realize Brannstrom's, played well and he's getting some of those minutes now, or getting some of those assignments. Susie, you got to wonder, is this just a bad quarter season, or is this a diminishing player? But I do wonder whether the Canucks will be just as willing or close to as willing to go out and get that second pair left side D as much as the second pair right side D.
I mean,
what do you think?
If they don't see that right shot D, then I think you still owe it to yourself to improve your D-core by getting a left shot guy. I think that's fine. I think, again, I'm going to be patient with the Brannstrom usage last night because he came off of a season high, the previous game. So I think that he saw a big team in Boston, sheltered his guy a little bit. But I think he also got taught a lesson that Erik Brannstrom helps you move forward. And they didn't move forward very well last night. So maybe he has some sober recollection here on how that game went down and how he used Erik Brannstrom, and maybe realized that they attack a whole lot better when Erik Brannstrom is sending passes to the forward. So we'll see. I mean, hey, Erik Brannstrom is what he is. He's a less than $1 million cap hit defenseman. So, no one should go to the wall defending him or saying he's an integral part of the Vancouver Canucks after this short stint. But I don't think there's any sense of panic that he's not who we think he is, which is a nice pickup that can certainly be a great third pairing guy on a contending team. It's asking a lot to put a guy like that, though, with his pedigree onto the second pair.
Then there was this from Ian McIntyre, who was in the building. It's like a high school reunion in the hallway outside of the Canucks room. This is postgame. A lot of ex-Bruins and ex-Canucks mingling and catching up. And, of course, Zadorov, Lindholm, the two big free agent signings for the Bruins from Vancouver. DeBrusk, Heinen, two big free agent signings from by the Canucks from Boston. I'm of two minds of this. I like the fact that these guys can understand and can park the fact that it's just a game, right? And maybe just because it is Boston. But the other part of my mind is they're just so chummy, Was sports better when there was good old-fashioned hate between teams?
But I think there is, Matt. I think just not for Boston anymore.
Yeah,
like
if it's the Oilers that quickly, good on them as people as much as players. But
I don't think the Canucks are doing that with the Oilers. You
don't think so?
The hallway, no.
Okay. I can remember covering a game early in my career, and Danny Markov. Do you remember the defenseman Danny Markov? Huge personality, like mile-a-minute speaker, incredible character. And he was playing for the then Phoenix Coyotes. And he walked right into the Leafs dressing room as a former Leaf before the game, morning skate. And he walks right in and he makes a beeline for Matt Sundin and Dmitry Yushkevich, and they're yucking it up like steps from the dressing room. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, I'm like, is this, like, it was within the first couple of months that I was covering the NHL. And I'm sitting there watching this, I'm like, is this how the NHL works? Like, you can just up and walk into the other team's dressing room? And then I learned, no, that's more just Danny Markov being a bit of an eccentric guy. But we talked to Pat Quinn about it, the late Pat Quinn, who at the time was the Leafs coach, and asked him about it, and he said, oh, that would never have happened in my day. But today... Yeah. They're all union brothers, as Pat team though.
He said derisively.
Exactly. Yeah. You could hear the contempt in Pat's voice when he was saying that. Okay, I want to get to this because I see a lot of people talking about it on social. Elias Pettersson's hot streak began before JT Miller left the lineup. Elias Pettersson's smiles and vibes and body language improved accordingly with that hot streak. This whole notion that Elias is playing better or is happier because JT isn't there, I just don't buy it. Yeah, they're not best friends. They have both copped to that. They don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. They have both copped to that. I can't tell you they play golf together at Northlands Golf Course because every time they go up there, one of the marshals or regular players tells us.
Yeah.
Secondly, they do not have to be best buddies to be effective together on a power play. The only question would be, will they, quote unquote, play for each other, as Tocchet often preaches? But the evidence from last year is a resounding yes. So,
but it's complete erasure of all those games that you talked about. There was a lot of games before JT Miller left where we were go check the shows. We were saying he looks happier. His body language is better. Miller was in those lineups. So yeah, it's internet.
I couldn't believe what I was reading last night. Yeah, like they're totally different personalities. JT is emotional and combustible, and has even said it himself. Probably says things that he shouldn't say. Just blurts them out. And Elias is completely opposite. Right? He's careful. He's considered. He's quieter. He's softer spoken. He's not as overly emotional. Anyways,
think about the number one and number two.
I realize it makes for good.
Think about the number one and number two centers in the heyday: Henrik Sedin, Ryan Kessler.
Yeah,
absolutely. Polar opposite people.
Absolutely. Now, we got Patrick Johnson. We're gonna have Patrick on the show tomorrow. But he brought up an interesting note in his column. I believe it was yesterday. This sentence: Tocchet wouldn't reveal the sequence on how Miller choosing to go on leave came about, such as whether it was the team or the player who initiated the idea. Based on the way that Alvin answered that question yesterday, Blake, where he talked about, JT's getting help and he's going to be a better person for it, and there's a lot of team and league resources available to him. Because I don't think we've talked about this yet. It sounds like it might have been as much team initiated as it was player initiated.
It sounds like the team's involved. As to who initiated, I don't know. I think that's too speculative at this point, but certainly the team's involved. It does not sound like it was just a JT Miller walking in saying, I got to go do this, blah, 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 I'm leaving, bye. There was a dialogue, it sounds like, and solutions were plated there. So, it's good. It's good to see, and it sounds like he's in a good spot right now to get the help that he needs, so that's great.
This is the second meeting between the Penguins and the Canucks this season. Of course, they've already played the game here at Rogers Arena, and here is the return affair in Pittsburgh. Blake, when the Canucks play the Penguins next year, will Sidney Crosby be a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I love the fact that people are trying to make this a story. I would bet fairly large sums of money that the answer is yes. Okay. Hey, I would love nothing more than a Crosby trade. It would be super exciting, particularly if he went to a Canadian team. I'm all on board with it, Matt. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Do you believe Crosby will end his career as a Pittsburgh Penguin?
Yes, I do. As much as, again, I think it's really boring, and it's really I'm surprised that a competitor that's hoisted the cup wouldn't want a chance to do it again, but he's not going to hoist a cup with the Penguins. So,
no, he's not, and therein lies the problem. And I am glad to see people coming around to this idea, which I floated some time ago, that if Sidney Crosby leaves the Pittsburgh Penguins, the logical team to go to is the Vancouver Canucks.
The logical team.
I see Donnie and Dolly had a guest on today, Josh Yohe, the athletic writer from Pittsburgh, saying he thought Vancouver would be the top choice or right up there if Sidney does leave the Penguins. And we've gone through it before. First of all, it's the Pittsburgh connections, Rutherford, Alvin, Tocchet. Now, there is no guarantee that they will all be here when if Sidney is ready to move on and change teams. And, of course, this would have to be at Sid's initiation, right? Like the Penguins aren't going to do this.
No.
It has to be a Sidney Crosby idea. Now, it stands to reason. I think they've done a pretty good job here, all of them. So I would suspect if this is happening in the next 2 or 3 years, there's probably a fair to good chance that at least Alvin, if not Alvin and Tocchet, and maybe even Rutherford, are all here. Secondly, this is the site of his biggest goal ever. And I know he's won Stanley Cup championships and has scored big goals in the playoffs along the way. But there is not a certainly Canadian hockey fan out there, or hockey fan outside of Pittsburgh, I would think, that when you say what are the highlights of Sidney Crosby's career, don't have the 2010 Olympic golden goal front of mind, right, on the tip of tongue. And then thirdly, Blake, this is the biggest hockey market in the world without a Stanley Cup. Comparable hockey markets or bigger hockey markets have all won cups. Some cases have been a long time ago, like in Toronto. But there is not a bigger hockey market the world over or the continent over that is still seeking its first Stanley Cup. In Canada, in a fantastic place to live. I think if Sidney ever wants out of Pittsburgh, and I do see that day coming, Blake, like, you know, he wanted to re-sign with Pittsburgh. Remember, that story broke at the beginning of the summer. Finally, by the end of the summer, it was a done deal. 23 games in, 7-12-4, 18 points, a .391 winning percentage or losing percentage, as the case may be. One of the worst teams in hockey. How's that working out for you? You're going to sit there and suck on these sorts of seasons for 2 to 3 more years, Sid? Come on.
Couple of issues here. The fact that the Vancouver market is the largest without a Stanley Cup would not factor into his decision-making whatsoever.
Why not?
At that point,
that is a chance to write an even greater legend, right?
Something that Sidney Crosby has no interest in. That is not the MO.
You don't think he'll think
legacy?
No,
no,
boy,
not a chance. Honestly,
I don't know, Blake.
like I'm absolute on that. Like, I don't think there's a single chance that that's a thought in his head. He would want to win. He would look at what's my best chance to win. If I'm going to leave here and ruin my legacy to some degree because I'm abandoning ship, I'm going to go where there's a chance to win. But that supposes, again, that he doesn't want to be the captain that goes down with the ship, which is exactly the kind of person and player that he is, which is exactly why he won't leave the Pittsburgh Penguins, because he's the boring hockey player mentality. No. I'm going down
I
with
think
this
when
ship.
this finish line gets closer in sight, I think a lot of things are going to change for Sidney Crosby, including his outlook. And I will remind you, when Wayne Gretzky was traded after the first one, where did he go? St. Louis, where his wife was from, and then New York. Why? Because there's nothing like living and winning in New York. He saw that with his buddy Messier.
Could their personalities be more polar opposite? Wayne Gretzky married the Hollywood actor. You know, wanted the glitz and the glamour, was in L.A. Like, that was what he wanted, was the sizzle. Pittsburgh-bound Sidney Crosby ain't his jam.
Yeah. I dare to believe. Like, dare to dream.
Hey, again,
because here's the other thing.
This is not my hope.
Front
this is
office
really what I see.
will go after him as hard as any front office out there if he's available.
Probably true. But if it's not going to happen this year, at this age, like when's it going to happen for Sidney Crosby? To the point where
I would look at next year's trade deadline. I think next year's trade deadline is might be the sweet spot, or next year's offseason. I think he'll probably grin and bear it, suffer. Remember, Blake, this isn't like the start of the losing there. They haven't won a playoff series in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
So he's already been through what I imagine is, completely distasteful in his eyes after having such a great career and winning so many playoff series over these. They couldn't win a playoff series. Now they can't get to the playoffs. So I think the critical mass, the compounding is happening here. What player of that ilk wants to lose? None of them. They tend to be the most competitive people out there. I would suspect there's a day coming where Sidney just looks around and says, okay, enough. Like, the people in Pittsburgh aren't going to dislike him if he wants off of a failing team that has been failing for a number of years. Of course not. They're going to understand. Yeah, This is a guy's only got so much time left. He wants to win another cup. It's not going to happen here. Best of luck. Happy trails. We'll root for you when you come through our building.
And, of course, if you do want to go down Matt's Boulevard and dream the dream, it's really easy to do the math with regards to the salary cap because he will make 8.7.
8.7.
For 19 straight years. 8.7.
But, Blake, is that not a signal as well, right? Like, he's left money on the table. He's left tons of money on the table to help build a winner.
To help coddle a small market team into being a winner. That's the way he thinks.
Salary. I mean, they spend to the cap. So. I mean, they're owned by the Fenway Group. It's not an impoverished owner by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but he knows that if he takes less, they can afford another great player. He's done that calculus.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's going to look around and say, okay, who are the contending teams with great players? And he's going to say, boy, Vancouver, Hughes, Pettersson, an incredible hockey market. I had, one of the times of my life in that city in 2010.
I noticed you didn't say.
And if we can win a cup there, like just think of the legend that you become in Canadian hockey circles if you score the golden goal in Vancouver to win Canada Gold and you bring the Canucks to their first Stanley Cup.
I noticed you said Hughes and Miller. You didn't mention the Pennsylvania.
I said Hughes and Pettersson, didn't I?
Hughes and Pettersson. Yes, you didn't mention the Pennsylvania native, JT Miller. Is he the return in that trade?
Something's going to have to go back. I didn't say Miller just because he's a little older, right?
Yeah. They'd want to get much younger than JT Miller at that point because he'd be, if it's happening next year, it's 32.
One would think, but you're also going to need to make salaries work over thereabouts. Anyways, a discussion for another day. Let's get to today's.
We just had the discussion. It's not for another day. We had the discussion.
Well, we had part of the discussion.
Oh, there's more to it.
The nitty-gritty of what they're going to trade. But, of course,
I see.
I'm telling you, it's next year's deadline or after next offseason. Could be this offseason, Blake, but we'll know. We'll have a better sense of who's on the Canucks roster at that point. We'll play that game when it happens. Greta, fantastic spot for all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame. We'll be there for Canucks Army viewing parties throughout the season. Your steps from the arena and the stadium. They have the great street food menu. The arcade, the air hockey table is amazing. Weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be, 50 West Cordova and a Greta bar. Let the games begin. Frank Corrado is going to join us. We'll talk about last night's game. We'll also talk about the Canucks going forward here. And Rob Williams, Rob the hockey guy from the Daily Hive. Boy, tickets. Getting your hands on tickets at reasonable prices or even at market face value prices becoming an issue because of the way that tickets are now sold and distributed. We'll have that conversation with them as well about the win in Boston. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. We both got the DeBrusk goal last night. I did not get the Kiefer Sherwood assists. You still have the honor. Blake, where are you going?
You're going to like me. The Chicago
Sidney
Bears.
Crosby traded to
Chicago Bears.
Oh, my God.
They're getting 9.5 points versus the Lions tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You got to wake up and you got to watch the Chicago Bears. That's the downside of making this bet.
We will have the game on the TV in here. Oh, you might not be here. Mike, we will have the game on the TV in here. Caleb played well last week.
It's a lot of points. I'm going to take the Bears plus 9.5.
The Lions are such a juggernaut right now that I'm really scared what tomorrow could look like for a national audience. Typically, when my Bears play before a national audience, there's a lot of ridicule that comes in via text, Twitter, and other means of communication.
Rightfully so, yeah.
They're very, very close against the Vikings. Caleb played very well. The new offensive coordinator has done wonders there. Shane Waldron was a disaster, and all the 12s, all the Seahawks fans told me, Matt, you're going to hate Shane Waldron, and you were right. I'm going to get a little bold here. Going for 9 straight road wins, the club record for the Vancouver Canucks, playing a dreadful team. We're going to have a fresh goaltender. Maybe you drop somebody in fresh as well in the lineup, although it was a winner. And I think goals will be a little easier to come by.
Oh.
And I also wonder about maybe an empty net. They've scored some empty netters this year, huh? Garland in particular. I'm going to lay the 1.5 goals with the Canucks. So the Canucks to win by 2, paying at plus 205. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Frank Corrado coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, and hockey fans, some exciting news for you. We've been telling you about it for a couple of weeks here. Mark your calendar, set your alarms. The Sheet with Jeff Merrick is coming your way starting December 2nd, noon Pacific time. He's going live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel every weekday. NHL, PHWL, junior hockey. The Sheet has you covered. Jeff's going to be diving into the biggest storylines, the news, the rumors, the emerging trends, insights from the rink. An incredible lineup of guests there and interviews of unique perspectives. The Sheet, your destination for in-depth conversations with the people shaping the game. It starts December 2nd on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Follow at The Sheet Hockey on all your favorite social media platforms.
The PHWL, is that the Professional Hot Water League?
PWHL.
There you go.
I'll put myself on errors and omissions. And, of course, we'll have Merrick with us each and every Friday. We've had him a couple of times, but going forward each and every Friday. And, boy, did he have some insight on the revolution happening here in development
the junior hockey
with the
stuff.
BCHL and junior hockey. Frank Corrado, former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst. He was covering the top prospects game yesterday from the studio. More on
all
that.
About the junior hockey, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Frankie's been digging in on junior hockey for TSN over the last few years. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good, boys. Yeah, it was exciting last night with the new look prospects game, right? Like we had the top CHL players playing against the U.S. National Team Development Program. And really, the reason why we're doing this, it's not because, we want to see the top prospects. It's not because we want to see CHL versus the U.S. team. It's because that when all these players turn pro and they get under the same roof playing for the same team, there will be rivalries that take place, and it's the CHL players versus the NCAA players with everything we do. You want to scrimmage after practice? Okay, CHL versus NCAA.
No kidding, really.
Yeah.
You want to do like, are we on the road? We're playing basketball one day. CHL versus NCAA. Is it a night on the town and we might play a little beer pong? CHL versus NCAA. So we're just getting a head start on all that stuff now.
Absolutely. We'll play the credit card game at dinner, CHL versus NCAA on who gets to pay. And Frank and I were texting last night. Be prepared for another parade of giants to the draft podium in June. There are some big boys in this year's draft class and in the first round. We're going to get to one of them later in the interview, but first I got to get your take on the Canucks 2-0 win in Boston against the Bruins. And Frank, all they do is win on the road. 8-1, baby.
I love it. Just simple game. Well, it also helps when your goaltender steals the show. Like, I think that's got to be the biggest takeaway from that whole night is how well Lankinen played. And of course, like, you go back. What a shrewd, proactive move bringing him in, realizing that you're going to need someone because you don't know when Demko is going to be back, and you didn't want to put so much trust and responsibility in Shilovs. Like, they've been proven right on this so many times now. But that's one where it had the Demko effect, whereas like he won you the game, like he stole you the game, and I think you couldn't ask for that. Like I think it was going to be unreasonable to like ask for it often in the early goings of the season before Demko came back, but to get it on the road on a night like that against the Bruins that are looking to push through what they've gone through and have the new coach. I don't know what more you can ask for a guy that you signed, basically right before the season for less than $1 million. Like that's
honestly,
you keep getting bang for your buck.
I had forgotten what a fully sealed net looks like. Like he's played really well this season. Demko's had some really good nights in the last couple of years too. Honestly, I'll put that performance up against anything Demko's given in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like nothing was going to get past him. Odd man rushes. Rick Tucker brought up the lateral movement of just following the play, and that looked like it was going to be. They looked like they were going to be A+ scoring chances. He ends up taking them in the crest because he saw it all coming. It's unbelievable to watch.
It's funny, it's funny that you mentioned that, he just ends up taking the shots in the crest. Like leading up to this top prospects game, I was reaching out to a couple like goalie people I knew in the CHL, OHL, and I was just asking about a couple of the guys. And the thing that you forget about when you're a player or you're watching the game is oftentimes the best goalies are the smartest goalies. Like they're the guys who read the play similar to like the players can, right? Like you can talk about athleticism and technique and, here's my percentages, let's play the high percentage. And it's like, if you also read the game well as a goalie, like that's something that just doesn't get talked about enough. And I think, to your point, like Lankinen last night, it just looked like he was a half step ahead of what was going to happen with the puck in front of him. And, of course, like steals the show. And you're right. Like anytime you just kind of get the feeling watching those kinds of performances in net, you're like, there's nothing going in unless it's like something really sour that happens in front of him where he's got no chance. And, that didn't happen. And I thought that was, it just brings me back to what a smart, proactive move it is bringing in that guy, and you picked the right guy to bring in.
Tell us about Jake DeBrusk. He would have played against him. So far, we know he's a really great interview, a fantastic talker on the game of hockey, and a streaky scorer. But round that out. Tell us more about Jake DeBrusk.
See, I don't think I ever played against him, but watched him a lot over the years just because Toronto and Boston seem to play in the playoffs all the time. Streaky scorer. I think his best years in the NHL are going to come as a Vancouver Canuck. And obviously they would be banking on that. And, that's why you give him the term and the money. And maybe that's me just stating the obvious, but there's more than what he was able to output with Boston. And I think there was times there where maybe him and Cassidy weren't seeing eye to eye, and that's hard. Like that puts a lot of strain on you as a player. And there's no reason why now he shouldn't be able to play a little more free, and embrace what that entails. But I think there's a drive to him when he's on his game, when he's at his best. Feet moving to the front of the net. Like it's direct. And I think that's, what we've seen from him more recently where, you go back to the Ottawa game, where is he? In front of the net, scoring. Last night against Boston, where is he? In front of the net. Like I think he's got the frame, and he's just got to kind of wrap his head around, I'm going to have to hang out in an area of the ice where I'm going to get slashed, cross-checked, although to a lesser degree than maybe you would have in the past, but it's going to be somewhat unpleasant. But if I do this and really stick to it, night after night, I will have better results than if I'm just kind of, taking some shots from the outside or trying to look for, quiet areas of the ice. Like there shouldn't be a lot of quiet about his game. Like it should be.
Sounds like the Brock
Besser in the
lesson.
abrasive areas of the ice.
It sounds like what Brock Boeser learned how to do. Like we thought Brock Boeser was going to be an in-space shooter, and Brock Boeser has learned to go to the high traffic areas and tip pucks and pick up rebounds and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know that he can be a 40 goal scorer like Boeser, but he could learn something by watching him. Perhaps
he could be a third. I think 30 goals is well within.
He set 30 as a mark, right? Like that's his goal going in. We had that conversation in preseason. Speaking of Boeser, so he doesn't have JT Miller there as a centerman, and of course things are going so well with DeBrusk, Pettersson, and Sherwood. They're not screwing with that line right now. So playing with Teddy Blueger, playing with Danton Heinen, different players, needless to say, than what he's accustomed to playing with. Usually more high skill. What do you want to see from Boeser? How does Boeser adapt his game to his line mates with Miller out?
Well, I think the biggest thing now is if you don't have Miller with you, you've got to be a little more of an engine. Like, you have to be a little more of a self-starter. And, like someone like Bluger, I'm not going to say, yes, limited with, playmaking ability. It's just he's not a second-line center. Like, he doesn't have that. He's a very useful player when he's slotted correctly. But ideally, if Teddy Bluger is on your line and Danton Heinen is on your line, those are the guys that go get you the puck. I think sometimes the centerman, is not freed up to do that unless they really are, thinking it one step ahead. Like someone like JT Miller, like he can go get it because he's that good. I think with Bluger, okay, if he's in the middle of the ice now, his game might slow down a little bit more, so he's in the right positions, and so I think that leaves Boeser to have to do maybe a little more of the legwork, and that takes him out of, that would take you out of that soft shooting spot that maybe you like to find. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he adapts, but it's a very different look and feel than what he would have with JT Miller. And, it might have to be a situation where, you're not going to get the clean looks that you want to get, and you have to be a little more of a go-get-it type guy and see if you can, kind of funnel some stuff. Like, I think it's just not going to be the cleaner looks. It's going to have to be, okay, let's go get it, let's funnel it, let's crash down and see if we can get something that way. It's just, if you don't have that skill, like, I just don't know how you're going to get the puck in nice, clean areas in the offensive zone.
8 straight wins on the road. How much do you think the guys are talking about that? How much do they want to keep that streak going? Like, that game versus the Bruins was not a Mona Lisa, and yet they just found a way. But does that mean that this streak is on the end here, or do you think it doesn't matter how? Can you put forth a beautiful effort here tonight after what you saw last night?
You could put forth a good effort, and it doesn't mean that, okay, because it's like hanging on a string, like it's going to end. It's hard. Like, it's hard winning on the road in the NHL. It really is. And, especially with the back-to-backs and the way the Canucks go on the road is different than the way a lot of other teams go on the road. Like, the Canucks go on the road, they'll knock off 7 games in 14, 15 days. Like, Eastern Conference teams don't have to do that. Like, that's not how they operate. And the Canucks, they have to. So that's why I think, of course, you always have to make the most of your home stands. And we know how the last one went for the Canucks. Obviously, you didn't optimize that. But to make up some ground, make up for that with success on the road, I think I hate the old saying. I don't know how you guys feel. I hate the old saying, we just played more simple on the road. Like, why not just play simple at home too? Like, what are you trying to impress the fans? It makes no sense because no one talks about that kind of stuff. No one says like, oh, tonight, yeah, we're at home, so I'm going to do something a little more fancy to impress the fans. No, you're not.
Remember, guys, flashy tonight. Let's be flashy.
Like, and no one even thinks that way. So I think it's just like it's such a it's the lazy, low-hanging fruit narrative that we tell ourselves, but like no one's ever thought that way or said that out loud. So I don't know, like, I really don't know. The only thing that I could say is that when you get on the road, it's just there's one task at hand and that's it. You're doing the road games. You go to the morning skate as a team, on the bus, meal together, on the bus, we'll go play the game, next city, boom, you're gone. It's like maybe just having that one singular focus on the road helps this group right now when you're at home, you're trying to catch up on this and that, and there's so much going on. Like, just that one simple task at hand, that might just be what's helping them play better on the road.
Remember, boys, some good flashy drop passes in the neutral zone tonight. All right, let's go get them.
So
ridiculous.
Yeah. Brannstrom didn't play a lot last night. 13 minutes and 6 seconds. He was a full 5.5 minutes fewer than the next defenseman. Is that just good tactics in what is a really tight, really ugly playoff-style one-goal game on the road, or do you read something a little more into Brannstrom's usage? And to be fair, there was a bunch of special teams time in the third, and he doesn't kill penalties.
Have you seen the size of Boston and their lineup? they're massive. Like they're the heaviest team in the league. Like I think their average weight as a team is like just under 210 pounds. They are a big, massive group. So Brannstrom is not that kind of guy. And in a game like last night, where there is a lot of special teams and there is a lot of, bigger guys that can lean on you, I think that's always been the, part of what has held him back, from not really being, called for what he was. Like in Ottawa, he was a third pair guy that was, sometimes out of the lineup and then, kind of cast away from Colorado. Now he's been found money in Vancouver because they needed someone who can move the puck. But there's the thing that has essentially held him back a little bit, is that when it's big and it's, they're leaning on you, that's where he can struggle a little bit. So I don't look at that and say like, oh, I'm not sure about Erik Brannstrom now. No, I think you know exactly what Erik Brannstrom is, what he does well, where his deficiencies lie. Like that shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. That's just not the kind of game that he's made for. And hopefully you don't have a lot of those, right? Like you play against Edmonton, you're not having those big mutants kind of leaning on you all night. It's just
he did well kind of game. He's in high ice time on the weekend. He had a season high too. So
it's just a different kind of game you have to play against. Yeah.
The Canucks won a game with 15 shots last night. It is 2 off the franchise record for fewest shots in a win. Frank, through 2 periods last night, they had 9 shots on goal. That's with 2 power plays. They didn't have a single high danger chance. They didn't have a single shot from the middle of the ice. They're now averaging 27 shots a game. It's 28th in the league. The only teams worse are Montreal, Detroit, Chicago, Utah. And in fact, there's not even a playoff team in that orbit. You have to go all the way up to Tampa at 20th in the league, a full shot a game better than the Canucks to find a playoff team currently on a playoff spot, shooting the puck so infrequently. We know he likes quality shots. We know he views possession as sort of a defensive tactic. Is it sustainable? Can you win at the highest levels playing this way?
Yes and no. Like, can I say yes and no? Yes, you can win by trying to generate more quality chances over quantity chances. But I think if you look at the lineup right now, you probably have to ask yourself, okay, who's facilitating so we could have a large volume of chances? Like, how are we doing that? As much as Pettersson has played really well of late, that line didn't have the puck a lot last night. In fact, the puck was kind of jammed into their throats a lot last night. So when your number one center doesn't have it a lot, now you're asking more of Bluger and Suter and all the other guys to say, can you guys drive the puck towards the other team's net? And the answer is more often than not going to be no. Like, you're going to have nights where, other lines have a good night, and that's great. But like, I don't think it's a matter of last night or, in general. We just, we didn't want to waste one. No, if you had the puck long enough or to have enough chances to waste one, you would have had more shot attempts. So I think that's the one, question that I would raise with the group right now is just, is there a lot of, driving of the puck to the opposition net in order to say, okay, we want to create quality, but we also do want some quantity. It's just, there's not both right now. And the reason why there's not both is because you don't have the pieces down the middle to have both. And, we'll see when JT Miller is back and what that looks like. And I know this has been an issue when Miller was in the lineup too, but like that's kind of the, like, you might not have the ability to generate a lot. So you hope that what you do generate is of quality.
Before you go, clarify this top prospects game for me.
Yeah.
It's 6-1 CHL. They run roughshod. As they should, shouldn't they? This is an all-star team from across the CHL of any nationality of player, as long as they play in the CHL, versus only Americans from the USHL and NCAA. I mean, they should romp. Why is this fair?
No, okay, so it's the program. Like, this is the U.S. program. This
right.
would be the best under 18.
It's not against the Canada program, though. It's against anybody in the CHL, right?
Right, but theoretically, you would say that all the players who are playing at the program are the best players in the United States of America at that age, unless some guys have opted to say, no thanks, but no thanks, U.S. program. I'm going to play in Youngstown, Ohio in the USHL. Like, in theory, Blake, this is a program that, on any given year, you would have had, go back a few years, you would have had Caulfield, Boldy, York, Turcotte, Zegras all on this team. Like, this is just a down year for the U.S. where, they only have 2 A-rated prospects playing on that team. Well, the CHL has 15 A-rated. And the best player for the U.S., in the country is James Hagans, who's not available because he's aged out of the program, so he's playing at Boston College. But I think, if you go back and look at this under-18 team over the years and look at some of the names, you'd be like, okay, this is going to be great. This is going to be highly competitive. It's just an off year. It's an off year for that program. So I think that's, what was going to win out last night? Was it going to be the super high-end talent of CHL, or the fact that the U.S. team plays, they've played together for a year and a half and they have a lot of continuity, and obviously the talent really won out. And there's probably 6 players on the CHL side that are going to go in the top 10 in this upcoming draft. It's that stacked on the CHL side, and it's that down of a year for the U.S. side. You put that together, and you get a 6-1 CHL win.
And one of the kids who played for the CHL last night and figures to be a first-round draft pick in June, and we haven't had a lot of these guys, at least not from Canada, is North Vancouver's Joshua Ravensbergen, born on the North Shore, played for the Vancouver AAA, Vancouver Northwest Hawks, and now with the Prince George Cougars, where he unseated Ty Young, Canucks draft pick as a starter, had an enormous playoffs, and at 6'5" is going to be a first-round pick in June. Tell us a little bit about Ravensbergen.
So, last night, it wasn't an overly busy night for him, but he made 2 key saves that lead directly to goals for Canada. Quick transition right off the save, boom, they score a goal. I'm like, hey, look at that. That's got to be a nice feeling if you're the goalie. And then there were a couple other chances where I think one was on the power play. U.S. gets the puck in the slot, and you can see, okay, is he going to go out and challenge that and be super aggressive? And if he does so, I think the U.S. player is just going to pump fake him, go around him, and put it into a wide open net. And what I saw from him was he didn't be overly aggressive. He kind of just got to his spot in the net, didn't come out and challenge too much, stood his ground, made the save. And I was like, oh, I guess he's a pretty good skater for a goalie. If he's, if he really trusts himself, that he didn't have to, start doing the desperation over challenge and things like that. So, yeah, it was a good night for him. It obviously wasn't an overly busy night, but the saves that lead directly to goals, and then just the trust in yourself that you don't have to overcompensate. Those are the 2 things that kind of stuck out to me in my non-professional goalie analysis assessment.
Oh, it's professional enough, Frank. You scored on many a goaltenders. You protected many a goaltenders over your years. And in fact, next week, I think when we do the hit, we're going to talk about a goalie you go back very far with, in Jordan Binnington, after we hear about, as we get closer to 4 nations face-off roster selections. Until then, thank you, Frank.
Thanks, boys.
Be well.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the Historic Wall Center.
The comfort menu at White Spot, I've been attributing to an escape from the weather this whole time. I hadn't thought of it. It's medicinal properties. Asterisk, not actually medicinal. But, there's a feeling when you sink into something that just is comfort food, that you're going to be okay, that you're going to get through whatever is ailing you. I used a chicken pot pie last night, in fact. Got it delivered. It was spectacular. So maybe check out the mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, the pot roast, whatever fits your fancy. Go check it out. The comfort menu at White Spot today.
You should get some of their soup as well, Blake.
Yeah,
Soup
we could do that
when
too.
you've got a cold, make you feel better. Here's Rob Williams, the national sports editor of the Daily Hive, and its Offside Sports Vertical at Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. Rob, how are you?
Good, guys. The last time you did a white spot read before one of my hits, I went full John Garrett and went on a whole burger rant. But I'm not going to. I won't do that today.
Right.
I won't do that today.
It's available
Can you
every
put
week.
ketchup on any of those items that Blake just... Hey, Rob, it's been tickets in this city. We just saw 52, nearly 53,000 for the Grey Cup. We have WWE Survivor Series, and have been talking to some people. I know some people who are going. I know some people said, I'd love to go, but I can't believe how expensive it is. And then comes Taylor Swift, where a bunch of no-site, behind-the-stage tickets go on sale this week at $16 a pop, just to be in the building and hear it from behind the stage. And they're snapped up quickly, and I checked yesterday, going for like $1,300 on the resell market. First of all, great that the city has these sort of big events, but holy shit, is it tough to get to one of these, and is it expensive? And I know you've done some looking into this, and particularly on the WWE card on a weekend.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note the WWE Survivor Series, which is the biggest WWE event ever to come to Vancouver by a lot. Like we've never had one of their marquee pay-per-view shows in Vancouver. It's at Rogers Arena on Saturday. It's not sold out. If you look at Ticketmaster, there's quite a few empty seats actually, and some prominent ones like ringside, like lower bowl. There's some in the upper bowl. There's kind of scattered around everywhere. I'm sure they're not going to let those prominent seats go unfilled, but it is sort of notable, right? And you look at the prices for these seats. You're looking at $200 to get into the arena. I know I've spoken to people that wanted to go, but yeah, it's just
to get in
expensive.
$200.
That's the get-in price, $200.
Well, I don't know what the original get-in price was, but I'm looking at the lowest price on Ticketmaster right now. The lowest standard admission, so non-resale price, $193. That is. And sorry, that's taking resale into account as well. $193 for lower bowl. So I'm not sure what's going on, because I'm seeing some $193 for upper bowl as well. So sometimes now, as we've seen, like sometimes these you can change the price of tickets, right? It's not like the old days where you had it stamped on the ticket. You can kind of change the prices. So I do wonder if that's at play as well here.
Well, so I think this answers the question, Rob. When you say not sold out, do you mean from the original vendor?
Yes.
Because what's happening here, and there's actually an NDP MP who has asked for an investigation on ticket price gouging centered around Taylor Swift. But what you have here now is a system where tickets go on sale. The actual promoter, the source vendor, buys them all up. Oftentimes this is Live Nation. And then puts them on the resale market at a higher price where you can where you're going to pay more, and you also have to pay the fees. You also have the scenario where people who are actually individual season ticket holders, they have, some malleability in terms of their pricing, the way they put it when they put it up on the resale market. Anyways, this NDP member is saying that Ticketmaster so dominates the ticketing and event industry, and using the dynamic pricing, which of course means higher costs for the consumer, that Ticketmaster shouldn't have that authority, as well as owning a resale platform and buying all of its own tickets with bots. In fact, the U.S. courts have already ruled on this. There's an antitrust suit that told Live Nation, look, you can't be both. You have got to break up Ticketmaster from your concert promoting side.
Some of the artists have done this too, though, Matt. Some of the artists.
No, exactly. Some of the artists themselves do this now.
They got it written into their contract. They get 5,000 or 10,000 tickets, depending on the size of the venue, and they get to resell those.
Exactly. It's crazy town. Like, it's absolutely awful for the consumer. I'm at the point where, I would like to see some government intervention on this to keep them a little more honest than what we're seeing these days.
Yeah, at the very least, the perception is out there with a lot of people that this is not, it's not as simple as fans buying tickets and then reselling tickets, right? So, I look, Ticketmaster with the service. $7 service fee and then a $3 convenience fee. Nothing would surprise me on if there were some shady practices going on.
But guys, is it just capitalism?
Well, that's it. Like the whole temerity to charge fees on top. Like, what the fuck is a convenience fee? Like, how are you charging me $3 on a convenience? Anyways.
But guys, if somebody is buying that ticket, are we learning any lessons here? Because if somebody is ultimately footing the bill here, and it's not an empty rink or field or stage, then it's just highest bidder. Isn't that just what the market will bear? Like they're not in the business of being a charity here.
I think the biggest thing is there needs to be transparency, right? When you mark something as a resale ticket, the assumption is not that it's being resold by the outlet that sold it in the first place. Like they're not, you know what I mean? Like they're just selling it. They're not selling it again. They're just selling it under this other guy. So I think that begs the question, like, okay, well, why are they doing that? And is this just so that they can jack the prices up as high as they want and have them be a little bit more, have it fluctuate to the market? I mean, maybe tickets should function like airline tickets, and they go up and down based on demand and how many tickets are left. But yeah, I think it is, if they were just transparent about it and you knew exactly what they were doing, then I think that, then I have an easier time with it. But when you kind of hide it as like a resale ticket, when it's not being sold by another consumer, then that's where the problem lies with me.
And to answer your question, Blake, it's price fixing. And forgive me, it's pending litigation. It's not settled litigation in the U.S., but it's an antitrust lawsuit saying basically you are cutting competition off at the pass by being both the promoter, both the event organizer, if you will, and being the ticketing side, not to mention the resale ticketing side.
Oh, it's a monopoly for sure.
Oh, for sure. And look, know some people at Live Nation like Live Nation. They put on fantastic shows, but it's a little too much. And that's
I bought tickets for
very
a
much
concert
into focus with Taylor Swift here and her Eras tour.
I bought tickets for a smaller band in March on Admit One. Was the ticket $50?
This is quaint.
$50. Doesn't that sound like eminently accessible?
No fees. No fees. $50. That's.
Well, I mean, I've got this. This is like one of my soapboxes. Is it should be illegal to add a fee onto something that's not optional, right? Like it's just the price then, right? Like this goes for like food delivery and anything, right? It's like a $5 service fee. Like that's not a thing. That's just the price.
Yeah.
That's made up.
The service is you
fraud,
selling me the
actually.
tickets. Yeah.
That is fraud. You were making something up and charging me for it. It is not real. It is simply a way to further gouge. Anyways, I mean, I think there are going to be a lot of disappointed people next week who can't get into the Taylor Swift concert and are looking at prices in the thousands. And we'll see. You know what? It would look really good on WWE and Survivor Series if you're booking your biggest card in Vancouver ever and you've got empty seats because of the way that you price them and the way this crazy, asinine resale market happens before us. How do you feel about these Road Warrior Canucks, Rob? Like, they should just play every game on the road, no?
It's been such a weird year, right? Because I think that's like one of the biggest differences between this season and last season. Obviously, last season they had a better start, but the fact that they've got this good record, but I feel like we don't have like this, there's not the same vibes with this team in terms of the buzz around the city because they're doing all their winning on the road. We're not getting these great moments in front of their home crowd. They've been so poor at home and so unbelievably good on the road. And say they weren't very good in Boston, I didn't think, but they come out with a win. Like they just somehow find a way to string together wins on the road. Yeah, it's been really bizarre. I can't remember the last time that they had a season where they were, so much better on the road than at home.
Yeah, and they've had some good road records in the past, but nothing like this.
Usually with a good home record.
Well, that's it, and nothing juxtaposed against a poor home record. Rob, I just want to double check with you on this because I saw your tweet last night. Lankinen with the 33-save shutout, the most saves in a shutout performance by a Canucks backup in over 12 years. Schneider in a 43-save shutout in March 2012. The shot edit has taken it down to 32. Is it still the most saves? No,
Yeah,
Jeff and Irf on
I have to
Rinkwide.
rack my brain on it.
I know.
have to rack my brain. Yeah, I'll you're giving me some homework to do here, but yeah, no, I believe it still would be, yes.
Okay,
I'd
all right.
have to double check. Yeah,
I was just double checking because I know last year doing some Rinkwides with Jeff and Irf, like you'd sit there through two periods and go, oh, they got 14 shots on goal, and then the third period puck would drop, and they'd be like, oh, they got 16 shots on goal. What happened there? Shot edit between periods changes the numbers.
Usually it goes the other way. Usually
bit.
it's shots coming down.
Yeah, well, sorry.
average.
Yeah, you're quite right. Lastly, I ask you the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question here, Rob. Are wins in Boston still a little bit sweeter than your garden variety regular season wins?
guys, the 2011 really stuck with me for a long time, and for every time they played Boston after that, it absolutely meant a lot. And I remember just people on Twitter just saying, "Let it go," whatever, and I was like, "Let it go!" Like, how can you let it go? Like that was that's the moment that was supposed to be their moment, and they got it stolen from them by the Boston Bruins. So of course it meant a lot. Marchand's just not quite the pest he was. So many players have changed teams. I'll say I think it means a little bit more to Canucks fans. Is it a lot more? I don't think so. I think it's not that whole rivalry is starting to fade. I think you still, as a Canucks fan, you still want bad things to happen to the Boston Bruins, but not like before.
Well, he still did a couple drive-bys. He buzzed Lankinen in there, and he checked Pettersson from behind a little bit. I thought there might be a reaction to that, but none of the players on the Canucks, remember Brad Marchand's ill deeds against the Canucks, so it sort of goes without notice, right?
With the Four Nations face-off tournament kind of around the corner and the rosters are going to be announced, I'm kind of reminded of, I was in Toronto to cover the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, so I was fully invested in that whole thing. Brad Marchand, if you remember, was on that team. That was like his first time playing for Team Canada and best on best. And he scores the winning. I feel like everyone's forgotten about this, but Brad.
He was
Marchand,
awesome in that tournament, Rob,
playing
with Crosby, right?
And he got the winning goal for Canada late in the game, in the deciding game against Team Europe in the final to win the World Cup of Hockey for Canada. I remember thinking, geez, he gets seeing him score the goal. It took something away from that Canada win. You know what I mean? At that time, because it was still kind of fresh. So it's not that anymore, right? That is definitely faded quite a bit. But I do remember in 2016, it was come on, Marchand gets the goal. Come on.
So long as Marchand is still there, Canucks fans will still enjoy those wins a little bit more. And last night had the added gravy on top of O'Rourke being one of the officials. He was the official in Game 3 for the.
Well, also, it was a shutout. They were booed off the ice, all that
Yes, booed by the home team. Hey, and we'll always have Cody Hodgson bar down in Game 8, baby. Rob, thank you for this. You have a wonderful week. Enjoy the wrestling, and we'll catch up next Thursday.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, where if you're heading to a game downtown, make a staycation out of it. Book your stay at the Wall Center. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres and Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. What a lovely Christmas present, huh? Honey, we're not only going to the game, we're staying downtown. And we're having some fun exploring our own city.
I've got some Christmas presents for you as well here.
Oh.
Black Friday is here, and it's time to score big on Nation Gear. So whether you're thinking about some new designs or rocking the classics, this is your chance to snag all your favorites for 15% off. And big news here, the brand new My City collection has dropped and is part of the sale. So along with the other gear you don't want to miss, this is your shot to grab the latest styles and the classics at unbeatable prices. So if you need the perfect gift for your favorite fan, Nation Gear has you covered. Hoodies, hats, everything in between. Make the holiday season legendary for the hockey lover in your life. It gets better, too. Spend over $200, and we'll throw in free shipping. But don't wait on the sidelines too long. This deal is 1 week only. Shop now, nationgear.ca.
Free shipping goes along a lot further even when there's a postal strike. I like this S&P hat. I like this shade of blue that they've come up with there at the Nation Network store. New general manager for the BC Lions, Ryan Rigmaiden, he met the media yesterday after making the Vernon Adams trade. He said, look, they looked at players, picks, all possibilities. He basically told us what Farhan Lalji told us, that the East was set at quarterback. There were no suitors there. That Calgary was the most interested from the jump. There were Western Tire kickers, but they absolutely had to get rid of the Vernon Adams contract because of a very large bonus being due in January. So basically, the Lions got fear of loss here. And I still do wonder whether they could have flipped fear of loss a little bit and created more a market of a bidding war. And Edmonton hasn't hired a coach yet. So I'm sure Rigmaiden is dealing with Ed Hervey right now, and Ed Hervey is saying, look, we're happy with Trey Ford, but what if Ed Hervey hires Rick Campbell and Jordan McSimic, the Lions head coach and offense? Do you not think they would want Vernon Adams there? And Ed may say, hey, guys, no, I believe in Ford, and that's the way we're going. That's his prerogative as general manager. But a lot of GMs also listen to their head coach and offensive coordinator. I think that's what's happened in Saskatchewan with Jeremy O'Day. But, you know, that's a young head coach in Corey Mace. That's a reasonably young offensive coordinator in Mark Mueller. I can't believe for the price of a first-round pick that Jeremy O'Day wouldn't have gone to his coaches and said, guys, we have a chance to significantly upgrade the most important position with a 32, 33-year-old as opposed to the 39-year-old that we were going to bring back.
Do you think it's money? Do you think that Vernon Adams is amongst the highest-paid players in the league?
It could be. It could be. But, I mean, if you're going to spend in this league, spend on a quarterback. And then I also wonder what, the Calgary Stampeders, where they would have been at in, say, a week or two when you're in the heart of the Christmas selling season. And that's a big season for the CFL because, season tickets to the CFL are affordable enough, right? That's a under-the-tree gift. Hockey tickets are so bloody expensive. But you get in the Christmas selling season there in Calgary, they got nobody to market. So, anyways, what's done is done here, and the Lions are going to have to make good use of those picks because they're going to lose some picks being over the salary cap so much. Yeah. This is a little bit by way of error and omission. We mentioned yesterday that player option decisions were coming up for Vancouver Whitecaps. I read that those decisions have to be made today, Blake.
Yeah, and they've tipped their hand on a lot of them. Yohei Takaoka, they said, is coming back. I haven't heard definitive word on Fafa Picault, so that's the one that's a bit of a question mark for me. So by the end of the day, maybe we do have word.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd that that's happening without a coach, right? And just looking back on this with Vanny, and we're gonna have Vanny on the show tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We've reached out. We're gonna get him on the show tomorrow. He was heading into the last year of the contract. God, he would have been so easily dismissible if things weren't going well early in the season. Axel didn't really articulate a single clear reason other than new direction.
Change of energy
in the press.
Yeah.
What's that?
Change of
different
energy.
New, in his press conference.
But the other interesting thing is that he does have a year left, so they are paying him.
Yes.
Like for a budget-minded team, you could have gave him one last kick at the can and then just walked away with not paying two coaches.
Yeah. Free agency is in 2 weeks now in the MLS. And look, you can criticize them, say, oh, well, they don't spend anyways. Well, they're now a mid-table spender. And they did add MLS UFAs last year, Blake. And Axel made a specific point of we wanted guys who know this league and how to play in this league. So
and three legit DPs. They're playing without three.
There's
DPs
now three
for a while.
legit DPs. Yeah. JJ Adams was very harsh in the province. Quote, it's decisions like these that have led to a long history of mediocrity for the Whitecaps in MLS. Only twice have they finished in the top four in their conference, second in 2015, third in 2017. And prior to Sartini, 1 playoff win and 6 playoff goals. Their lot in MLS life is to be a depth team. Those plucky Canadians from the Pacific Northwest, managed by whomever was the Morris Buttermaker of the moment. And JJ points out, Greg Kerfoot has never spoken publicly. He is quite reclusive, and that it leaves the impression of ambivalence towards the Whitecaps when you don't actually hear from the guy cutting the checks, the guy who has the ultimate authority. We used to hear from Jeff Merrick. We don't hear from Jeff Mallet. We don't hear from Jeff as much.
We've heard from both of the owners privately ourselves. Like we've been able to have conversations with them. And we know it is anything but they don't care. But at the same time, having sit-downs with media off the record is a lot different than on the record and in front of fans. So he absolutely does care. I wish he would tell the fans that.
No, I think we've had 2 conversations with Greg Kerfoot over the years. More with Mallet. And then Axel says, we need a coach the moment we start to train, that's for sure. But I think urgency is never a good advisor, so I don't want to be driven by urgency. The club culture and the club is the driver of everything. And then this way you build consistencies. And so we have to find somebody who fits the culture into what we have built here. Gosh, you had a culture with Vanny. And, I'm just worried that the coach is going to look at the roster having very little to do with it, right? If he's not hired by free agency, and they execute all these options, they lose their player to the expansion draft, they sign some free agents, and they're going to get to January and preseason training, and the coach is going to look around and go, well, I've had zero influence on this roster. That gives your coach a built-in excuse in year one.
It does. Now, it might be a negotiating ploy. It might be a case of they're close on a guy.
Yeah,
and they don't want to say we got to get this done by. We don't want to establish a deadline because then all of a sudden they've got that as a leverage point. If we are in the Barca Lounge or seemingly, then
fair. If they're talking to Curtin or somebody else who they've hired or are close to hired, and he's already advising on player decisions, then of course all of this is moot. But taking Axel for his word that no, he doesn't have somebody lined up, then effectively you have the front office running the offseason here with very little input from a coach who is going to have to inherit these players. Not all of them may fit. Not all of them would have been his preference or his choice. That's not exactly organizational alignment. Poll question results. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results. Will the returns of Brock Boeser and Thatcher Demko offset the loss of JT Miller? Yes or no? This was very close, Blake. The people said?
People said yes.
They did? Percentage?
53.
51.
Wow.
A lot of people said this is a dumb question, so thank you for your feedback on that. Next, misconduct. No one said there would be a math question. By the way, if they didn't have any of the three and then added two, how would that be an offset? Well, okay. Jim says yes, because the team has done pretty well without Demko, and EP40 is ramping up. Basketball Phil, short-term bump, of course, but need JT back long-term. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. We mentioned the player option decisions. We will give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt. We said earlier in the week that the reports that were out there was that Aaron Rodgers, if he plays in 2025, does not want to play for the New York Jets. Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, does weekly Tuesday appearances there. He now says he's not sure if he wants to play next year, but that if he does, the Jets would be, quote, the first option. A few weeks ago, he had said, I think so, when asked if he wanted to play next year. So he's changed a little bit on that, and he's saying the Jets would be his first option, contrary to reports. And then Cam Robinson with a small one. Connor McDavid had 66 points in his age 15 season in the OHL. Michael Misa, the exceptional player who's in this top prospects game, top 5 pick next year, 56 points. So Misa did not outpoint McDavid as a 15-year-old. Anything to self-report? Did Yerke catch you on anything? Did I miss a Yerke tweet? Okay,
nothing.
Thanks for.
I was so clouded in the head. If I did make one, I definitely would have caught myself on that. So
you rest up, okay, buddy? All
Yes,
right,
thank
we
you.
need you the rest of the week. That's Blake Price from his home studio, who is battling something heinous this week. We thank you for joining us and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific weekdays, but Friday will be 11 a.m. with this early Canucks start in Buffalo. And please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.